Hi there, I'm Adrian from CINEMANIA.
Good.
So first off, I'd like to hear a bit about the autobiographical elements of the film. Did they appear gradually where you were coming up with it, or were they the reason it was born in the first place, the ones that inspired it?
Yeah, I think it came from a couple places. I think the main reason is I wanted the movie to be really grounded. And I wanted the movie to be about something that I really loved, and I loved my family. And also I'm not that creative, so I didn't want to come up with new characters. So I just stole them from my family. Um, but it really was it basically because I sort of knew that the movie was going to take a long time, and that I needed it to be about something that I would continually have this like endless furnace of love for. So I made it about my family, and specifically, I find when I watch a movie, whether it's American or foreign or whatever it is, even if it's about a culture that I've never been to, the more specific it is, the more I engage with it and click in with it. And so basically, I was trying to use the specifics of my own family to hopefully make it feel more universal. So that was sort of where that came from.
Yeah. So the movie is also a huge tribute to creating weird art. I'm guessing this is also somewhat autobiographical
Yes.
since yours like everybody dies in 90 seconds feel very Katie Mitchell. But
Yeah.
it also made me want to create more weird art. So I'd like you to talk a bit about that, about the like sort of inspirational side of the film.
Great. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I would love it if sort of the movie inspired people to be creative or to make work, because so many things in the course of my life sort of lit a fire under me, and whether it was reading independent comics when I was a teenager, or watching The Simpsons and Ren and Stimpy when I was a kid, like all of these things like create this fire in you, and it's so exciting, and I do think that, like, hopefully by having a character who makes things, and they're not always great, but but she's still trying, like, and they're like fun and goofy, but they're also trying to be serious, like, so I would love it if people, it'd be my greatest dream that people like look up to Katie Mitchell, the way that sort of when I was a kid I would look at these characters in Freaks and Geeks or something, and be like, wow, it's like this, it's okay to be weird, and it's okay to make art, and it doesn't always have to be serious or beautiful or whatever. So I'd
Yeah.
love it if people were inspired by the movie.
Cool. So in your open animation masterclass, you mentioned an entire deleted subplot where the Mitchell family kidnaps the president.
Hmm.
So after seeing the final film, my question is, how many iterations did it go through?
Oh, the president thing or the whole movie?
The whole movie.
I mean, like, you would be floored if you knew how many versions of the movie there were. There's like, we had, you know, 38 screenings, like we had so many screenings, and every version of the movie was different. I mean, the interesting thing was there was never any huge change. Like, it was, the DNA was always the same. The scenes were always like in the same order and stuff. Um, but we just went in, we just kept sharpening it and rewriting it. And, oh, maybe this dinner table scene could be funnier, or we're not setting up Katie well enough in the beginning, so we have to rewrite the beginning.
Yeah.
That stuff. I mean, the hardest parts were the beginning, because
Hmm.
that's when an audience, either connects with the movie. Like, we found that if we can get the audience to connect with the movie in the first 5 minutes, they're in,
Yeah.
and they're following through in the end. If you miss in that first 5 minutes, the
Hmm.
screening is a disaster. Like, kids are running around the theater, squirt guns are coming out, like parents are checking their phones, like you really have to like make the audience connect. So that was probably the part that we worked on the most.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the nerdiest question on the interview, so I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wear this. Okay, so on the Gravity Falls commentaries, you mentioned these small character moments that don't move the plot forward but make the characters feel alive and likable.
Yes.
So I noticed they're very present here as well. So I wanted to ask, what were some other learning experiences on the show that influenced your work on the film, and were there any key differences?
Yeah. I mean, learning experiences on the show, I mean, it's like everything I learned. I learned so much about storytelling from Gravity Falls, and I love that you're not just wearing the Dipper hat, it's the Dipper clone hat.
Yeah,
And that was an episode that I wrote with a bunch of other great writers.
yeah.
But but yeah, no, it's sort of, I mean, the biggest lesson that I learned on Gravity Falls is that like, if you have love and respect for your characters, the audience will have love and respect for your characters. And that was something that we learned over and over again. Like I remember a scene in Gravity Falls where Seuss is looking in the mirror, and it was in an episode that was like maybe not our best episode, but there was one moment in it where Seuss puts on a Stan's fez and he looks in the mirror and he's like, one day, Seuss, one day, one day. And like that little bit of like texture for the character, like that's all anybody talked about that episode. They're like, Seuss has a dream, you know, because like when we had the characters be dumb or not self-aware or something, people would hate it, you know, because they wanted to believe in these characters. So that was like probably the biggest lesson that I took into the movie. And then the thing that I sort of learned from the movie that I didn't know from Gravity Falls is the power, and we knew this in Gravity Falls, but we just never had any time because we're on a TV schedule. But I learned the depths of it on a movie is just how much you can get away with, or I mean, how much better you can make something just by iterating, by trying and it's kind of like, it's honestly like kind of like evolution or something, where you do a bunch of random mutations, where you try a bunch of new jokes, ideas, story moments, character moments, whatever, and then the ones that succeed or live, you continue and put in the movie, and those like, oh, okay, we have this set up, we can pay this off later, you know. And some of them are horrible, and then you just chop them, kill them, die, they go in the furnace. So basically it's, and in Gravity Falls, we only were able to do a little bit of that. And in the movie, you were able to do it nonstop, you know, for years, almost too long.
Okay, so I'm taking this up. I will tell you that I made both, but I would just keep switching between them at the Halloween party. So I would
That's cool. That's funny.
So, okay, so going back to creating art, Katie ends up doing exactly that, even in the middle of the apocalypse. And you could say that sort of became autobiographical as well. So how do you all deal with the shift in the middle of production, having to work from home because of the pandemic?
Yeah, no, I mean, it really was. And much like her doing art in the apocalypse, sometimes it felt like maybe not the most important thing to do. But I will say it was tremendously effortless, because it didn't feel that different, which was shocking. You know, it was like, oh, we're having the same, you know, meetings and stuff. I mean, the big difference is like, you would love to be in the room with the person, you know, because I love the whole team and I would love to sort of spend more time with them. But you also, it was also sort of shocking at how much we were able to get by, you know. And so it was as difficult as it was, it could have been a lot worse, I guess.
Fair. So in the past, you've mentioned an R-rated coming-of-age film project, the 7-Year Con. So after you debuted with a more family-oriented feature, is adult animation a road you're still interested in exploring?
Yes, no, 100%. I would love to make something that isn't necessarily like so dark and kids couldn't enjoy it. I mean, because those are the movies that I loved when I was a kid. I loved, like, you know, Back to the Future and Jurassic Park and stuff that everyone in the audience was having a good time at, but you didn't have to, there wasn't this big onus to like, hey, make sure kids like it. You better make sure the kids are loving it, you know, because kids will love something if it's good, I think. You know, when I was a kid, and that made you feel cool as a kid, where you're like, oh, I'm watching The Simpsons, I'm getting away with something. Rather than like, this is for you, Johnny, enjoy your movie while we watch, you know, the big kids movie. So yeah, I even though that movie did not work, I would love to do something more adult. I think there's never been a better time, which is exciting, especially in America. I think that America is like kind of behind the rest of the world in terms of figuring out that animation doesn't have to just be for children. But even though, and because it's like, you know, it's a medium. You can make any kind of movie in animation. I would love to see like an animated horror movie, or you know, like nobody's ever done that, and it'd be great. You know,
that'd be awesome. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, Kate is the first LGBTQ lead in a mainstream all audiences animated film. So I'm curious, did you have to fight for that at all?
You know what? We didn't. I mean, because it's you know, one of these big animated movies. You know, every decision, you really, you know, we had meetings about like what's written on Katie's shoes, you know, so of course we talked about it. But everyone at Sony was very much like, yeah, let's do it, you know. and I think they're really proud of it, and I think we're really proud of it. But it was a like, everyone was like, is this okay? At first, but ultimately everyone thought that it was the right thing to do. And we have a lot of LGBTQ plus members of our team, and they were all like, do it, go, and that sort of helped. That sort of like helped be like, well, come on, how are we not going to do it? So, and it's like ultimately it's normal in real life. Like, why shouldn't it be normal in animation?
Yeah. So producers feel
one more question. So sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, so producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller constantly spotlight the power of collaboration in interviews and masterclasses. How do you approach that collaboration, both alongside them and with your crew during the film's production?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, those guys are wonderful. Like, and we sort of have the same philosophy, which is, I mean, it's like, where basically it's like the best idea wins. And if the best idea comes from the director, great. If it comes from an editor, if it comes from a storyboard artist, the janitor, who cares? Like, throw it in the movie. And I think that spirit really bubbles over, because it allows everyone to throw in ideas, and it activates all these brilliant artists that you have on your team, who instead of like being like, why are they doing this? You invite them in and say, hey, do you have any ideas? Like, if you don't like this, what would you like? And then they're like, what if it's this? And you're like, hey, that's better than my idea. Do it. So it's really wonderful. And our team is like, I think, just a knockout team. And I really do think that they're all going to go on to do really great things. And I will be sitting there on the sidelines with a giant foam finger, while trying to recruit them for my next project. But I'm so excited for the team, and I do think it's easy to collaborate when you have such good collaborators.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a treat. I love the hat, and I also amazingly well-researched questions.
Thank you. Bye.